We're at the airport for the first time in almost 3 years. Pretty close to 3 years. So we feel pretty rusty on the whole packing and flying thing. But we made it. The last time we were on a plane was the first week of March in 2020. We made a trip down to Fort Myers, Florida, and this was the first scouting mission that we were going on. We wanted to visit Florida and see if this had potential for the place that we wanted to move to. And we had a great time on that trip. We did so many fun things, but we walked away knowing that Fort Myers is much too busy and much too congested for what we are looking for. So we decided we needed to plan a trip to check out northern Florida, but that was definitely not going to happen. There was such a big wrench thrown in our plans, and we had to just kind of put that on pause and give it some time. Now we were finally back on a plane in November of 22 to head to Florida and check out the northern part of the state. We packed our camping gear, we booked a rental car, and we had plans to drive around and just kind of explore and see if this area of northern Florida that is less traveled and less crowded really checks all of the boxes for what we are looking for in terms of a place to relocate.
So don't let the weight of the world slow you down. And if you search for the meaning of life, it won't be found. So take your insecurities and leave them all behind. Let's learn to make the most of our time.
We headed over to the baggage claim and Patrick checked his phone. The AirTag showed that the big red suitcase with all of our camping gear did make it. Okay, good. That is a huge relief because if we did not have our camping gear, we would be in trouble for the rest of this trip. It's not that loud.
Yeah.
But we got it. That's the important thing. After we collected our very important piece of luggage, we headed through the airport to the rental car center. When we get our rental car, Pat does a quick walk around video just to double check if there's any scratches or damage so that just in case, there's an issue when we return the car, we have proof of the state of the car when we got it. We learned this travel skill from prior experience. When we were traveling out west years ago, our rental car got hit in a parking lot, but that's a story for another day because we were in Florida, the sun was so beautiful, and we were just happy to be warm. Now, one of our travel rules is that we try not to camp on the same day that we fly. So I booked a cheap hotel room and we were going there for the night. So here's our Howard Johnson hotel. Pretty basic, but clean. A lot cleaner than some places that we have stayed in. Can't complain for the price. Very good hot shower, which is my number one thing. Well, number two, because clean and then hot shower. But yeah, we'll do the job for the night and then we'll figure out what we're gonna do tomorrow on the way north. Normally when we're traveling, I'm the one who gets up early and I'm excited to start the day. On this morning, Patrick was up first. Literally sunshine and palm trees. I opened my eyes that morning to Patrick handing me a cup of coffee, and I realized that he was already dressed to go to the beach. He woke up and looked at Google Maps and saw that there was a beach not too far away and figured that we could spare a little bit of time on our way north before we started getting serious and looking at properties. A beach day couldn't hurt, right? We were in Florida, so how could I argue with that? We got into the car and started to head over toward Honeymoon Key. I think checking out the beaches in the area is actually a pretty vital part of figuring out if we want to live in this state. We have to make sure that the beaches are nice. We made a stop at the visitor center, and it's always important to take note of the areas where you see buildings elevated, because then you know they have a history of flooding. This was something we were keeping an eye out, and obviously at this point we were on the coast, and I'm sure this visitor center has seen its fair share of hurricanes, but we were actually surprised to notice how many buildings and houses are actually lifted when you go inland, because they're in close proximity to a river or another body of water that floods regularly. We decided to make a stop on the way north at the beach, and it was very funny. Usually in the morning I usually get up first and kind of start moving around and getting things ready. I woke up this morning to Patrick coming back in with coffee. He put it next to the bed, opened the curtains, and I looked and he already had his swimsuit on. So he woke up knowing where we were going. It's like me on hiking day. So beach stop. A stop at the beach was a good call. We just kept looking at each other and saying, this is November. We're at the beach. We're in swimsuits. We're going swimming. It's such a novelty to us. New Jersey has some wonderful beaches, but this white powdery sand and being able to swim in November, it's pretty cool. What'd you get? Pretty cool. It's so weird that it's November and you can still feel the sun is super intense. It's like hot. So we can't stay long. We're not acclimated to this amount of sun. We were back in the car and refocused on the task of heading north. And I was happy to be making our way away from Tampa. Lots of fun things to do in Tampa, but very busy, lots of traffic, and we were trying to move away from that busy Florida vibe. And happily, the farther north we went, it turned into more trees, less traffic, and we even passed a sign that said, "Beware of bear crossings." I always forget that there are bears in Florida, or maybe I just don't want to remember that, especially before we go tent camping. As we continued north, the feeling of being in the country got stronger. There were farms and ranches, bigger trees, lots of pickup trucks, and we weren't even going into the middle of nowhere. We were heading toward Rainbow Springs State Park, which is not too far outside of Ocala.
miles toward West 19.
7 miles away to get to the campground. What did that say? Did you see that sign?
No. What did it say?
It said something about the camp. The springs and the campground are in 2 different locations, and we were using the address in our GPS for the springs where you actually go swimming. So we had to loop around to the other side to find the campground, but at least now we knew where we were going to come to go swimming the next day. Okay, so we went to the wrong entrance because it was...
Continue on Southwest 180th Avenue Road for 3 miles.
It was the entrance for the swimming area. This is actually really neat back here, though. So we had to go around to find the entrance for the campground. This drive going around the other side of the park to get to the campground is beautiful. There are big farms on either side, rolling hills, giant oak trees, pastures full of cows. So pretty. We did look at the property in this area, and it's a little bit out of our price range because it is still pretty close to Ocala, and this is horse country. But as we pulled up to the entrance to the campground, there was a closed gate. So we did need a gate code to get in, and thank goodness it's only like 10 after 5 and they're open until 5:30, so we had to call. I didn't have any service on my phone, but Pat was able to use his phone. We had to call the office to get the code to get in. So you never know with these places. It says that the gate is not supposed to be closed until sunset, but it's still pretty light out. There's the park office. All right. We were able to get checked in and headed over to our tent site. 58?
We're like back there.
Oh, we're back there. Oh, neat. Okay. Even with our detour to the beach, we made it before sunset. This one?
Yeah.
Rainbow Springs has 2 loops of RV sites and a small tent area. It's kind of neat little area back here.
Yep.
I wasn't sure how far it was going to be away from the car, but that's like, oh yeah, 57. The car's right there. As usual, this trip was planned last minute, so I was just glad to find any open spot. I've never seen a sunken fire pit before.
Yeah.
Gotta watch where you're walking. Okay, cool. Put the tent there. It's kind of easy.
Get the shower.
Oh, mosquitoes. We better get that tent up. I've learned from past trips to Florida that as the sun starts to go down, you better have your tent ready to go, or you risk being eaten alive by the mosquitoes. It's a tent site, but it has 30 amp and 50 amp.
Confused.
That's weird.
We're not getting in here.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe you could plug something in. I don't know what.
People with a tent wouldn't know to bring
A plug, like an
Yeah.
adapter.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I don't have is bug spray.
Mhm.
And now I'm getting bitten. And water. So that's a pretty good setup. Oh, alright, there we go. We are not used to these kind of amenities at a tent site. We're not even used to having them at an RV site most of the time in New Jersey. We're happy if there's running water in the bathhouse. So this was pretty fancy. I warmed up some soup for dinner, but I have to strip most of the audio out of this because somebody was playing Campground DJ and blasting their music, so that kind of ruins it for YouTube. Alright, let's see if it's edible.
Same stuff you get at the Space Museum.
When you're a kid, you're a lot less picky about how things taste. Crunchy. Does it actually taste like ice cream?
It does, but it's like
Crunchy
chalky.
ice cream.
Yeah.
After dinner, we decided to head over to the bathhouse to get showered and get ready for bed. Now, we didn't realize at this time, but we made a vital error. We got our stuff together and drove to the opposite side in the RV loop and went to take our showers. But we left the rain fly open on our tent. The sky was perfectly clear, there was no rain in the forecast, so we really didn't even think anything of it. But after I got out of the shower, I heard rain hitting the roof, and it was an absolute downpour. I got dressed as fast as I could. I ran over to the men's bathroom and grabbed the car key from Patrick, and I tried to drive back over to our campsite, but it was so dark at that point, I couldn't find the exit to the loop. It was so confusing. You couldn't see the signs. And by the time I made it back to our campsite to actually close the rain fly, it was way too late.
Well, you worried about you and me, the injustice, the next president to be, the news and what you hear, your career. It's time for you to face those fears, and it's all fair to be aware, and I'll be there, so don't be scared. Just take a deep breath of air, and 1, 2, 3 to 10, you begin to focus again, and